What's going on, Bulls Nation? We've got a live CHGO Bulls emergency podcast coming up right now. The Bulls make another trade as we approach that deadline on Thursday, February 5th. They acquire Pistons former 5th overall pick Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley Jr., the vet from Minnesota, in a 3-team trade. We'll break it down next. What's going on, Bulls Nation? Welcome in to CHGO Bulls Podcast emergency style. All CHGO emergency pods presented by our friends at Xfinity. Imagine that. I'm Peck, Bulls_Peck, with my guys, Big Day, Bow, BAWL Sports, Will, the GOAT, Gottlieb, Will_Gottlieb, on Tuesday afternoon, ahead of a Bulls-Bucks tilt taking place up in Milwaukee in just a few hours. We have our second Arturas trade of this trade deadline season. After doing some clerical work and accumulating a couple second-round picks a few days ago, they have now flipped Dario Šarić, who was a part of that trade, arriving in Chicago, sending him and Kevin Huerter to the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons send Jaden Ivey to the Bulls, and Mike Conley Jr. is also headed from Minnesota to the Bulls, as Minnesota is getting a first-round pick swap, a protected 2026 pick swap from Detroit in the deal as well. Gentlemen, instant reactions. Dave, how we feeling?
They did something, and I didn't hate it. That's my instant reaction. They did something, and I did not hate it. I expected to hate everything. That's how I've been raised, all right? That's how I've been raised within this front office and how they've done me as far as trades are concerned. I am ready for disappointment all the time. I'm ready. And so these last two that he has done, one was very logical and made all the sense in the world. And this one, I'm like, this is a solid trade for the Bulls. I don't feel like they got duped or got scammed or, somebody just ran them. You know what I mean? Just ran their pockets or nothing like that. I don't feel that way with this one. Maybe it's because I've always loved Jaden Ivey. I've said it on this show a million times. I was pissed when Detroit drafted him because I thought he was just going to be that guy and take off. I've always been a big fan of his game and how he plays, for sure. The injury really set him back. We'll see. I think that explosiveness and that first step that he had, I don't know if he'll still have that with that issue, but he's still a catch and shoot guy. He still can run the Billy Donovan style offense that they like, and he's not afraid of the big moment. He wants the shot. He's not afraid of creating his own shot. The Bulls need shot creators, and he is not afraid to do those things. So, and he'll get you 20. You know what I mean? Like, that's how Jaden Ivey kind of works. So that's awesome right there. Mike Conley Jr., I've liked his entire career. Like I tell you all the time, it's my favorite position. And Mike Conley is one of those point guards I have always wanted on the Bulls. I've sat and talked Matt's ear off about this when we went to a Minnesota game and we watched them play. And I was just like, oh my God, look at Mike Conley. Oh my God, look at Mike Conley. Oh my God, look at Mike Conley. Because I just love the way he plays the point guard position. So getting another kind of high IQ'd half-court guy that can shoot the three and just is really, really smart and doesn't have to wait on what Billy Donovan is telling him to kind of run, knows what to kind of do out there on the floor to settle things down and won't commit a ton of turnovers for those guys. If he's healthy, again, this is a health thing for sure with him as well, and an age thing with him for sure as well. So if those two things are going to be okay, then I really like the pickup of both of them. I'm curious to see what else the Bulls are going to do, because now I have other questions about fits and who's staying and who's going. But I'm going to stop talking now because this is GOAT season right here, ladies and gentlemen. I want to let my man get in and do his thing.
I love how you do that, Dave. No, I totally agree. And I think just seeing the notification you see the Bulls trading out Kevin Huerter and Dario Šarić, and you see them getting Mike Conley and Jaden Ivey. And on its face, it's hard to think of this as anything other than a huge win. You're getting the younger talent. You're getting the more talented player. You're moving off of one of those expiring contracts that, we've been sitting here talking about. Are they going to be able to get anything for these guys? And I think that's a huge win. I think it makes sense for the Detroit Pistons. We don't need to spend too much time as other teams. But they've really struggled shooting the ball. They're getting Kevin Huerter, who I think is really going to be able to help them and add another dynamic shooter to their roster. They are getting the pick swap with Minnesota, which gives them, it could move them up a couple spots in the draft, and that could allow them to do something in the summer or maybe flip it. And then, the Timberwolves are basically dumping Mike Conley. The Bulls are taking him in for free. And that's going to allow the Timberwolves, I think, to make a pretty aggressive play here at the deadline. So I'm very curious to see how that lines up. I think the big thing and the big reason why the Pistons would want to do this is because Jaden Ivey is in the last year of his rookie scale contract. He's a restricted free agent coming up. And that means, as we have come to learn with Josh Giddey, that there's going to be some interesting dynamics of play in terms of his free agency and whether the Bulls are able to keep him. But right now, they're going to have about 30 games or so to evaluate him, to get him integrated into the system, and to determine how important he possibly could be to the future of this team. And I think for a player like that, it's a worthy risk to take, especially given the cost. For me, I think it's going to be interesting just to see how close to Jaden Ivey looks. But this is a separate thing from Josh Giddey or Isaac Okoro or Jalen Smith, who had really, I think, fallen out of favor with their current teams. I think Ivey has too, but for different reasons. For Ivey, it's been the health. But I feel like there's more upside with Ivey than there is for some of the other players that the Bulls have traded for in the past. And so when you combine the potential talent there, the fact that you're getting a look at him before free agency starts, and the fact that it's really not costing you much, and we can talk about the cap ramifications of this as well, I think it's a really strong trade for the Bulls. And I think it, to your point, Dave, sets up some other future moves, even maybe before Thursday, because what did we always know about this team is that they had too many guards, right? It was Giddey, it was Kobe, it was Ayo, and it was Trey. And now you're introducing Mike Conley, who I don't think is going to be a long-term piece. He could be bought out. He could be, flipped into another deal. But Jaden Ivey also, another smaller guard who is going to have to find his way in this roster. And so I wonder if that means that there could be more trades with that backcourt.
Shout out to everybody hanging out with us in the chat on YouTube. Thanks for joining us for the Emergency Pod. Hit the like button if you haven't done it yet. Niles Reed just making a joke that the Bulls got younger and more athletic at the trade deadline. I mean, if you count Jaden Ivey and not Mike Conley, then yes, that's accurate. Thomas Banks saying, Bulls with 2 wins? What is happening? W by W, says Clayton in the chat. Meanwhile, Timothy Jones saying, more AK poop emoji. But I think there's different things to be excited about and things to be skeptical about when it comes to the details of this trade. Obviously, Dave, I share some of your sentiment, and they're like, oh my God, this Bulls executive who has built this, sort of he's got an MO of, I'm not going to do much, if anything, at the trade deadline for a team that's just meandering through another not quite 500 season, and that's frustrating for the fan base. So when you see a move with names involved in it like this, you get excited right off the bat. And I do think that there is some potential here with Ivey in particular. But the skeptic in me is also very eager to point out that this just seems like another AK move in the AK trend. And you kind of were alluding to a minute ago of bringing in a, quote, young player with experience who's fallen out of favor with the team that they were playing for. Most often, the team that they drafted, the team that drafted them, and did so with a lottery pick, even a high lottery pick. And yes, somebody else in the chat mentioned that Ivey is injury prone. He played just 30 games for Detroit last season. He's played 33 of their games so far this season. But in the games that he's played, his role has taken a hit. He started all 30 of the games for them last season that he played. So far, he's got 2 starts in 33 games. He started 73 of 74 his rookie year, 61 of 77 his second NBA season. This is a guy whose role has decreased as his team has gotten better Who does that sound like? Sounds like Josh Giddey. Sounds like Isaac Okoro. Like, I'm sorry, I don't want to immediately just be that guy about this trade. And maybe Jaden Ivey can turn his career around in Chicago. But that's that's immediately where my brain goes. And I'm like, how can it not? This is AK written all over it. Oh, a young guy who needs a fresh start? Let's bring him in. I'm sorry.
Let
me
reply to that. I'm not loving this. I'm not loving it.
Let me just reply to that real quick because I think it's a fair point.
It's a very fair point.
I did allude to it for a reason. One, I think, Ivy may or may not work out. I don't know what the answer to that is going to be. He's been dealing with some real injuries. He had obviously the broken leg, I think it was last year, that basically ended his season. He had a knee surgery, I believe, to start the season. Somebody should fact check me on that because I'm 95% sure that I'm right on both of those, but we should probably get that right here. But I think the key difference for me, and this is even just aside from what kind of upside does a Jaden Ivey have compared to a Josh Giddey or an Isaac Okoro, because it is very much the same formula. I think the formula is a good one. The problem is in the past, he's sold high or he sold low on a player he should be selling high to buy low on a player, to buy high on a player he should have been buying low, right? You're selling Caruso at a very low point relative to his value to buy high on Giddey at the lowest point in his value. This is different, I think. Kevin Huerter is not a part of the future of this team. Dario Šarić clearly not a part of the future of this team, right? And so you're really not giving anything of value up. You're just getting a tryout for 30 games. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I think this is a better execution of what should be their approach, right? They're not going to tank. They're not going to go for high draft picks, even though continuing to trade for these guys is admitting that getting talent at the top of the draft is how you get star players. Fine, they're going about it their way. But I think the key here is that they're just not overpaying to do it. To me, this is a good value proposition based on what they paid. And like I said, Ivy may or may not work out. He may, be somebody that the Bulls want to keep long-term. He may not. They may let him play on the qualifying offer next year. We just have no idea yet. But I think bringing him in for these final 30 games, get him in your system, see how he looks, see how he plays in this style, which I think should benefit him theoretically. At this cost, I think is a win. If it were, you're trading Kobe and a pick to get him, then I don't feel so great about it. But I just don't think Kevin Huerter was ever seriously part of the team's plans. And so when you think about it that way, you're basically renting out cap space to get a preview on a potential restricted free agent this summer, which, as we've been talking about, has been their plan all along.
Exactly. It's why I said at the beginning, I didn't feel like the Bulls got duped or things got stolen. Like you mentioned Giddey, Matt, and the reason it stung so much was because of who they gave up for him and not acquiring the things back for extra from that team because of the guy that they gave up for him. But giving up Kevin Huerter, cool. Like, yeah, I'll take a risk on Jaden Ivey for Kevin Huerter, for a young guy, as Goat said, that has to prove it in these 30 games. I don't feel like it hurts you or it hurts anything you're trying to do for your future or your present, honestly. Because if he turns out to be a guy that you want, well, you'll figure it out right now. You'll know that that's the guy that you want to sign. If he doesn't find out to be that guy, it's no sweat off of you. You let him go, and then he goes about his way, and he'll find his way in the NBA. Same kind of with Mike Conley. He's a wily vet, so he's gonna land on his feet. You know what I mean? Like a cat being dropped from a building, bro. Like he's gonna land on his feet. It doesn't matter. But taking a risk on that, that's a smart, calculated risk, in my opinion, for what you're giving up for it. So that's why I like it. Like I would rather sit and watch Jaden Ivey develop and see if he still has it than I have to watch the greenest light on the team and Kevin Huerter continue to shoot the worst 3-point percentage he has ever shot in his career since his rookie season. So I'm okay with seeing if they have something in a guy like Jaden Ivey for what Go said, for what you gave up. If they gave up something else, Matt, with Kobe on here, I promise you, it'd be me and you right now going to town with the pitchforks, you know what I mean, ready to burn this joint down. But Kevin Huerter, yeah, I can live with that.
Shout out to Grant in the chat saying it's nice to have an emergency pod again. How about that? Breaking Bulls news. It's been a minute. Shout out to Miss Melissa. I see the chat as well. And AJ Katz saying, to me, this is the Bulls saying we were going to take a look at Ivy in free agency. Instead, we trade for him now, get his rights, and get a preview at what it could look like. And if it doesn't work, Let him walk, less risk. Kind of what you were just saying, Dave. And like that part I'm fine with. That's a fair point to bring up. Like you're not risking much by like you're giving up Kevin Huerter in this trade. Journeyman role player on an expiring contract and an expensive one at that. It's not a lot to sacrifice to just take a swing and see if you can sort of resurrect Jaden Ivey's career here. It does also kind of just make you wonder about the guards the Bulls have on the roster right now and the next 36 hours or so. Because we did a mini pod last week, Dave, about all the different ways that a Kobe White to Minnesota trade could possibly transpire. And Mike Conley was involved in every single one of them just for the fact of matching money. It seemed like, Minnesota's ready to move off of him. So now we'll see, because I saw in Shams' tweet, he made a little note, quote tweeting his own breaking news, that from Minnesota's perspective, it helps them with their tax dollars and also opens up some roster flexibility because they haven't given up on big game hunting, parentheses, Giannis, between the next, for the next day and a half between now and that Thursday afternoon trade deadline. So with Ivey coming in, even though, yes, he's about to become a restricted free agent, and the Bulls will have to sit down at the negotiating table again with him this summer if they want to keep him, it like Ayo, Trey, Kobe, Josh, like somebody else is leaving in the next 36 hours. I think.
Without a doubt. And that's why I wanted to ask Goat, like with the trades that you've seen the Bulls make, does it feel like they're stockpiling or does it feel like they're keeping? Because when they did a trade last year for the Zach LaVine, I thought they were stockpiling and they weren't. They were like, we're keeping all these guys. So with what you've seen them do, Goat, like with the second rounders, with bringing in Conley, who's, an older vet, with bringing in Ivey, who's still a proven guy, do you feel they're keeping or is it stockpiling?
I don't know yet. I mean, I think it kind of depends on what's available. And that's really the sentiment that I've gotten from the team, is just that they're going to be opportunistic. And that, I think, is what this deal is. And opportunistic doesn't always mean that they're going to do something. And I think that has been a source of frustration from the fan base, is like, okay, you want to be opportunistic, but like you have to do something, right? And so this is them doing something. I'm just looking on Twitter here to see kind of what people are saying about the salary cap stuff, and we can talk about that. Basically, the Bulls get an additional $2.5 million in space below the luxury tax if they are willing to waive Mike Conley or maybe trade him in a future deal. They could continue to do what they did the other day, which is take on money to get picks. There is a tweet from Yossi Goslan, who is a cap analyst, and he says basically that Dario Šarić for Mike Conley works straight up, and then the Bulls can absorb Jaden Ivey into their unused mid-level exception. And that would give them a big-time trade exception worth $18 million. So if you think about a team that is below the luxury tax by $10 million, maybe you send out Mike Conley's $10 million and you can take back somebody who's worth $18 million. And so you can maybe get an asset to do that. The other thing here is that Mike Conley is expiring. So this isn't affecting your long-term books. That still keeps you flexible. Now, some of that money, especially if you re-sign him, is going to go to Ivey now in the offseason. So that's part of what their plans are going to be. And I haven't really fully had time to assess what this means for their cap space in 2026. But I think it just gives you more options. It makes you more nimble, and it allows you to continue making some of these asset plays that we just lauded the other day to get a couple of second-round picks. So I would expect that they continue to do that. We saw a huge trade with the Jazz and the Grizzlies today, where the Grizzlies are now going to be a team that can really facilitate deals. I think the Bulls should continue and will continue to look at that themselves. But I mean, I think for what they are trying to accomplish here, you create more space under the luxury tax to be able to facilitate deals. You get a look at a young player that you could potentially keep long-term. You don't add any long-term money to your books. This keeps them flexible and adds talent without really sacrificing any future space. I think from that perspective, like you just, it may not end up being like a home run deal in terms of the end result, as in Ivey, we don't know what he's going to turn into. But I think that's the process here is right. And that's a huge difference from future trades, or previous trades, I should say, where in the past it was Caruso for Giddey. And my feeling about that trade was the process wasn't right, but the outcome or the result ended up working out for the Bulls. Giddey has been fantastic, and obviously it helped out the Thunder too. I think the same thing with Lonzo and Okoro. The result has not been great for the Cavs, right? Lonzo is been really terrible. They're going to have to salary dump him, and it'll probably cost them a pick to do it. But the Bulls probably had opportunities, and there's been a lot of reporting that they would have been able to get a pick had they traded Lonzo at the deadline last year. So they could have done better if they had a better process, but the result ended up working out. I think this process is probably the best process that we've seen from the Bulls so far, which is take a chance without, really costing yourself anything. And that is, that's a huge departure from how they've operated in the past. And I think you have to be, it's going to take a while and a lot more moves to really buy back the trust that this organization has lost with the fan base. But I think this is the kind of move that can really take a step in the right direction. And when you stack that with the Šarić thing and maybe a few others that are good process, that starts to build back that trust. And that's what Arturas was asking for when he asked for patience.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Shout out to Beef
Correct.
Dip, who said, "What's up, guys? Took a break from watching the Bulls for a few months for my own mental health. Great choice. Always appreciate and respect those choices. But I'm back. I missed you guys. We missed you too.
Missed you too, man.
We got to shout out a couple of Emergency Pod sponsors here real quick, and then we will continue breaking this trade down. Thanks for being here, Bulls Nation, for the Emergency Pod on Tuesday afternoon ahead of Bulls Bucks later tonight. We will also be in studio for pregame and postgame for that one. But for now, shout out to our friends at Old National Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's on the field or in your financial life, the best teams win by delivering excellence at every level. At Old National Bank, they believe every play matters, from everyday checking to long-term planning and commercial banking. Their team is here to build momentum and help you move the ball forward. It all starts with a plan tailored for you by professionals that you can trust. From simple tasks to bigger financial moments, you can count on them to coordinate your needs with steady, knowledgeable guidance that brings clarity and confidence to each and every step. It's a partnership designed to help you feel supported, not just today, but well into the future. So whether you're celebrating a win, rebuilding after a tough loss, or gearing up for whatever comes next, like that Thursday, February 5th trade deadline, we've got you covered with tools, insights, and an expert crew that is always in your corner. Old National Bank, member FDIC, where relationships and results matter.
No, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's down in Florida. And she was like, "Oh man, it's so cold here." And I was like, "Yeah, what's the temperature?" She's like, "It's like, 50 degrees down here." And I almost threw my phone across the room. And instead, I made fun of her and I told her how cold it is here in Chicago. But the other thing that calmed me down is I was in a heated home, ladies and gentlemen, and it was heated by those fine people at Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. They have got you covered, ladies and gentlemen, with what you need, because at Four Seasons they guarantee same-day installation for all your heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric and generator needs with no extra charge for nights, weekends, or holidays. Celebrate. Save up to $4,000 on furnaces and comfort systems with Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Furnaces start at $39 a month, and furnace AC combos start at $57 a month. Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric has been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. So visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
All right, we roll along here. CHGO Bulls Emergency Pod, breaking down the Bulls' three-team trade with Minnesota and Detroit. Bulls bringing in Jaden Ivey, former 5th overall pick, and the wily vet Mike Conley Jr. TBD on if Mike Conley Jr. is going to be around for a while or if he's going to get the Dario Šarić treatment, which, by the way, I saw a lot of people in the chat saying, shout out to Bulls legend Dario Šarić. They assigned him a number. They put up a welcome to Chicago graphic for him the other day. And I was like, is this dude really going to be here? But so, Goat, what do you think it signifies as what AK might have in mind between now and, it is 2:20-ish Central Time right now. So we are just under that 48 hours to go mark before that Thursday deadline. Do you anticipate that we're going to see something else here? And do you anticipate that something else being Kobe White getting moved?
Yeah, I do. I just don't think you can go through the rest of this season with 5 guards that you need to play big minutes. I think that the Bulls would like to avoid being in a situation where they have to pay both Kobe and Io. I don't know if they will keep one of them and trade the other, or if they will let both walk or try to trade both. I'm not sure what the outcome is there, but I just don't think that that's like the best move for the future of the franchise. And we kind of know that that's been on their mind anyway. So I think the other thing that I kind of like about this trade from that perspective is that in the past, they've really only given themselves opportunities to do one thing at the deadline or in transactions, right? It was, how can we get this team better within what we're trying to do? And now you're in a situation where you can be sellers. You can move Coby White and get draft picks and still have 4 guards that you move forward with. Or maybe you also trade Ayo, and now these are the 3 guards that you have locked in with Trey, Ivy, and Giddey. You can take in money at this deadline by using this trade exception that you're creating. You're not technically allowed to aggregate players that you just acquired in a trade. So the only reason this was able to work from the Bulls' perspective is that they sent Šarić into a trade exception. So maybe there's another deal like that where you combine a couple of salaries and take back even more money. And you're able to do that because the team has a $10 million trade exception that can fit Mike Conley. So you can be buyers, you can be sellers, you can be facilitators. I think they have a lot of options here. And that's really just not something we've been able to say or talk about when it comes to this team. And so to answer your question of like, what else are they going to do? I think the possibilities are limitless. I mean, I don't think they're going to go out and make a big trade. We can talk about Jaren Jackson and could they have been involved in that? Giannis, we could talk about. I don't think that they're going to be big time buyers, but I do think that if something comes up, they've shown a willingness to be opportunistic in those situations. So again, I don't think that they're going to go that direction. I think they want to, and getting Jaden Ivey kind of reinforces this, that like the 23 timeline where you've got Giddey, you've got Buzelis, you've got Essengay, and now you've got Ivy, all 23 and under. That's a lot better than talking about 25, 26 and under, right? And so you have more runway with that. And I think they want to continue to build on that timeline and trajectory with that kind of upside of like high profile, former top 10 pick types of players. And I will say, just reiterate, like Ivy, I think I always thought Ivy was like a higher upside prospect than Giddey ever was, or than Okoro ever was. Like, I do think that there's more upside in this deal. And that's what we need. That's what they've been talking about. What we've been talking about them needing is a star player. And I don't know if Ivy's going to become a star. A lot of the athleticism, I think, is not quite there from what it used to be after all these injuries, but it's that kind of an upside play that I think is a worthy move. And so if you can parlay this into offloading Coby and or Ayo and maybe one of these other expiring contracts to go get a young big, maybe that could be on the table. And I think that would help round out the roster while still giving you the flexibility that you're looking for moving into this offseason.
Yeah, and real quick, Matt, Goat said 5 guards. He meant 6. He forgot Yuki. He meant 6 guards.
I did forget Yuki.
He meant 6.
Maybe you create a roster spot and convert him to a standard contract.
But it's not 7 anymore because they waived Javon Carter.
Not 7. It's 7. No, it's not 7. But Goat, you were talking about Jaden Ivey and that injury that he had, and just it was honestly really devastating. And for people who don't know about, he basically broke his leg. Like, it was a very devastating injury that happened for him in January, and in October, Goat, like you were saying, that's where he had successful arthroscopic surgery on his knee in October. That went in October of 2025. That just happened. That's what kept him out for a month. So he definitely has those issues. And when you have, and I know the arthroscopic surgery basically was a cleanup for discomfort and things like that. But when you have those things, you worry about the step. At least me, that's what I worry about, is your step and your first step. Now, we saw it with Zach LaVine when he had the surgery. Like, Zach LaVine didn't lose his step. His step was still there. But I don't think he didn't have this kind of devastating injury on top of that arthroscopic surgery that he had. So I'm concerned about that step. But what gave me what I felt more calm about with his game was just how improved of a three-point shooter he became after his rookie season with the team. I believe he had 40% last season. I think he's at 37 right now on fewer attempts. I think he's taking like 3 attempts a game, but still a 37% shooter from 3. You need that, and not only just a 37% shooter from 3, a guy who can create it, that shot and take that shot and hit it at a respectable clip. He's better, obviously, on the catch and shoot. So I think of the point guards already, that the Bulls, the plethora of point guards that they have, he's going to be open because in that Billy Donovan style offense, Kevin Huerter had a ton of open shots from the 3-point line. He just would not make them. But I think Ivey will have that same kind of look in this offense, and a little, I feel, just a tad more explosive, just a skosh more explosiveness. And I'm saying that because of the injury with Jaden Ivey. So I think it could work out for the Bulls, but again, the injury rightfully should make you pause on this. And I don't think you're wrong to pause and take a look and say, I don't know, Jim. Like, you don't know if this will work out great for it, but I'm like the fact he can have his opportunity here, because falling out of favor in Detroit and not playing all those games, playing basically 16 to 18 minutes is what he was playing in Detroit. You know that's going to kick up here in Chicago. So we get to see basically a prove it kind of 30 games for that young man. So is he ready to go or is he not? We'll see it for sure, because Billy is absolutely going to put him out there on the floor.
And not just his health and where he is in that regard, as far as a 30-game sample size to prove it before they sit down at the table for restricted free agent talks this summer. But as you just mentioned, Billy Donovan, where and how quickly will he prove his role to be on this team for the final third of a season with a new group of teammates and a new coach? Because we had been talking a lot recently as Billy Donovan, and kind of it started just based out of necessity because he was missing a whole bunch of guards at once. But, going to that double big look of Jalen Smith starting alongside Vooch and shifting Modest to the 3 and talking about like, okay, well, if this team does move Kobe White, then you kind of lose that problem or solve that problem of once Josh and Kobe are both healthy. And then if you still want Jalen out there as a part of your starting unit because he's been playing so well, who sits? Does Okoro sit? Does, dear God forbid, Modest sit? Now, where does Jaden Ivey mix into that? Because is he going to be coming off the bench like he has been for almost every game he's played for Detroit so far this season? Do they want a stronger look? Are they going to stagger him? Are they going to maybe give him a few starts and bring him off the bench in some games? Because otherwise you're talking about Giddey, Okoro, Modest, Jalen, Vooch being your starting 5, assuming all 5 of those players are healthy and available for the rest of the season, because I don't think Vooch is getting moved. I don't think they're going to trade Jalen Smith, despite the fact that he's probably got some decent trade value right now. And they traded for Okoro. They're not moving him, and they're not moving Modest. So, like, that's your starting 5. How does Jaden Ivey fit into that? What do you think about that as far as how Billy's going to handle integrating Jaden into what he has cooking already?
Well, I think that's the other thing that we're going to probably get a better sense of after the deadline happens. But this is the kind of move to me that also signals, and I'm not sitting here saying like Kevin Huerter was having this incredible season that was pushing the Bulls from, a play-in or a, lottery team into the playoffs. He wasn't. But to me, this is a not win now move, right? Like, I don't want to say it's a tanking move. I don't want to say it's a move that's going to like help them bottom out, but this is not a move that is, we're adding to this team to try to make a playoff push right now. And that's consistent with what I've heard about the direction of the group, is that they're going to, remain competitive and not, basically put on the facade of tanking, but they are going to think longer term and bigger picture about how they add to this group. And so you're swapping out a veteran who, has been in and out of the rotation, like he's mostly been in, but there have been a couple of games where he's only played a handful of minutes or, missed a stint, whatever it may be. Now you're in a position where you kind of need to see what Ivey looks like. You got to give him the ball a little bit. You got to let him play next to Giddey and Modest and see how the 3 of them look together, because those are the decisions that you're making for the long-term health of your team. And so I think whether or not that helps the Bulls this year remains to be seen. I don't know if it will, but like, that's kind of what needs to be the priority from my perspective, is like, how do these guys look together and what does this guy look like? Because now you have a big decision to make. And I think if you go through this season and he's not really playing, or Billy's avoiding him because he doesn't trust him yet, then you're running into problems where you're not even getting that 30 games to evaluate him. And that I think is not, then it takes a hit on the value that we're talking about in this trade. And so I think you have to put him out there. I think you need to see what he looks like. And really, I think the way to do that is by moving on from some of these other guards on the roster, where even if Billy does maybe not want to play him, he doesn't have any other choice, because this is the depth chart that he's got to work with. So I think it could mean future trades, and I think it should mean moving the priority more from must win every game to must evaluate the roster, and whether they win or lose doesn't matter, but like the evaluation part is the most important part.
Mm-hmm. No, he's dead on that, man. Like, they have to figure out what he is. And I mean, I think this is enough time, honestly, for him to figure that out. I think the timing of it is pretty good as well, because you got basically this week and then All-Star break starts next week. So you've got time to, find a little bit of comfort, not get 100% comfortable, but, find a little comfort on the floor, seeing where you can be, seeing whose toes you're not going to step on the floor, to keep the spacing right and things like that. And then once you kind of see that, you can go to the tape during that All-Star break and see and point and say, okay, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. And then when you start that in the second half of the season, you go for it. So yeah, like I like all of this, guys, because the risk makes sense in this instance. It makes sense to me. In the Giddey one, I thought he had no choice but to be good. He better be. like you just gave up our number one asset, to get this guy. He better be good. With Jaden Ivey, trading him Kevin Huerter, I don't have that same pressure that I'm putting on him kind of with that. I'm like, I need to see if you got it. I just need to see if you can play. And if you are, man, that's exciting. That's awesome. Stay here. I can't wait to build, kind of with you in that aspect. But if it's not, okay, we saw it, didn't work, we can move on, you know what I mean, and then go for it. But I don't think that AK and them will take a lot of that, stank, for lack of a better word, that they took for Giddey and Caruso, that they will in this instance because of that reason. So it is very important that they understood what they were giving up to get this and to take this risk with this young man. You remove some stuff off of his shoulders, and you just want to see him fit. You're not asking him to be the man at all. Even if he, shines and does his thing, Matt, you're not asking this dude to be that guy, you know what I mean, for the team. You're just asking him to be better than what you've seen him right now in Detroit. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get more opportunity. Your minutes are going to increase. Your shots are going to increase. All of that is going to happen while you're here with this team. And so it will be a really good time to assess and find out what he can do. Me personally, like I said, I've been a fan. I've always been a fan of Jaden Ivey. I'm honestly excited that he's here. And I'm excited to see, what he can bring to this basketball team.
And Kyle in the chat saying re-signing Ivey will be cheap. Hopefully it pays off. That's the other thing to think about as far as the Bulls being back in the same situation they were when they made the trade for Josh Giddey. And knowing that you're going to have to negotiate a guy coming off of his rookie contract. And in Giddey's case, we knew, like, okay, this is like, so he put in a season's body of work and then it was time to negotiate. And with Ivey, it's going to be, a third of a season or so, if that, before negotiating. But we always knew Giddey was looking for that $30 million a year over 4 or 5 years deal that a lot of other, lottery talents of his draft class were getting and had already gotten. And that those contracts got drawn out. And Bulls wanted it to be 20. Giddey wanted it to be 30. They eventually settled on 25. Based on his body of work, I don't anticipate that there's going to be that kind of demand or starting point from Ivey and his representation as a restricted free agent with figures that look anything close to that. Or I mean, am I on base or off base there?
I think you're right. I think you're right. And I think that's another reason why you do this is because Io and Kobe are about to get more expensive. You've just had them on bargain deals and haven't been able to really build a team around them. Well, now you've got somebody who you just bought low on who has not yet guaranteed like big time money for him. I think his contract so far in his career is pretty good, probably because he was, a top 5 pick. I think he's earned about $33 million career. But, I'm just playing with Stefan No's salary projection model that I've been using. And basically he's on pace for $10 million. And that's if you extend, we can project, let's say, his minutes or his games played to 65, his minutes to 28. And if he continues at this level of production, his value for this year is $11.1 million. He's making 10.1. So it's a slight, increase, but longer term, you're looking at somebody who's making in the like 12.5, 13.5, $15 million range. And I think that's probably a lot less than whatever you're going to have to sign Kobe for. So that's another reason why you could potentially, use the restricted free agency as a tool, again, the way you did last year with Giddey, compared to Kobe, who's going to be unrestricted and can sign with any team. You can now see how he does, and maybe he looks really good and that changes things. But I think based on the way that he's played, the injury stuff, I just think it'll probably be, my just off the cuff guess would be like somewhere in the 4 years, $60 million range. So $15 million a year. Maybe it starts a little bit low and escalates. Maybe it's 15, even the way that the Bulls have been doing some of their last few contracts. But, is Kobe going to get 20, 25 million? You're saving $5 or $10 million a year on a player who's younger, and, who knows what he turns into. Maybe he has more upside, maybe not. But I think that's the risk that this team needs to take right now with talent is you've seen what it looks like with Kobe and with Giddey, and it's just still not good enough. Like, they're good players. I'm not saying like they need to get rid of Kobe. I definitely do not feel that way. He's been an organizational win. He was a top 10 pick for them, turned himself into a really good player, obviously reached higher highs last year than this year, has been dealing with injuries. But like, this is a guy that ideally you'd want to keep on the Bulls for his whole career, but it's just not working out that way because of the Bulls' trajectory as an organization. And so you have to start making decisions thinking about that. And I think that's why you maybe go out and trade for an Ivey, because you could retain him longer term on a cheaper deal. And maybe he actually ends up being better than Kobe. Maybe not, but you're not paying him the way that Kobe's probably going to get paid. And I think the same goes for Ayo. Like, Ayo's probably in that same category in terms of dollars that he's going to get. I would guess it's going to be around the mid-level exception. That's kind of what I've heard just around the league, what people think. And it's what that salary projection model pegs him as. That's a lot more palatable to have two of those guys than, a $25 million a year and a $15 million a year guy. With less upside. So I think that's really how they have to be thinking about this right now.
Let me ask you about Conley though. I want to ask you this question. Yeah, we feel like, maybe he's won't stay here, maybe he's part, of a bigger thing that they're shipping out. But does it signal another thing? Because Giddey's been out with the hamstring injury. Trey Jones has been out, with his injury as well. They haven't. Javon Carter, is out of here as well. We're just talking about Kobe not being here. With all that being said, are the Bulls also maybe thinking about holding on to him because of the injuries that they have kind of gone through? And if that's the case, what does that signal to you about basically the length of time of an injury to a guy like Josh Giddey and Trey Jones?
I think it's too hard to make that assessment right now if they're thinking about it in terms of those injuries. Giddey's obviously been out for a little bit. Kobe should be playing tonight against the Bucks in Milwaukee. Trey Jones, it's just like these soft tissue injuries. Yeah. And I think obviously you want to have as many ball handlers available as possible. But I just don't think you can be thinking necessarily about, we got to keep this guy this year. If it works out that way and he wants to stay and you can't find anything else for him, that's fine. Go right ahead. But I think what they should be thinking right now is there a way we can flip him into a bigger salary that comes off the books next year that can help us, give us the opportunity to save another team some money and get a pick out of it. That's what happened with the Dario Šarić thing. I always thought it was very strange that they were talking about him as if they were going to be keeping him. I think they would have if they couldn't find anything for him, but you've got an opportunity to do some roster churn, to pick up some assets. And he's kind of the one where you're probably not going to keep him long-term. So in terms of cutting roster spots right now, you have 15 guys. He's kind of the guy that I think makes the most sense, especially because like at this point in his career, he's probably going to want to either take a buyout and go play with a contender or at least get traded to a team where he has more of a chance to compete at a higher level. And, maybe he does relish the opportunity to mentor younger guards. And so I think if he ends up on the team, they can't find anything for him and the Bulls don't want to buy him out for whatever reason. I think I would imagine he will be great with the younger players on this team and valued in that role. I just don't really think that should be the priority for this team now, given what they've signaled, which is that they are willing to take on some money to facilitate some deals, that they are willing to take some risks by buying low. And I think when you talk about the trade exception that they just created worth $18 million, maybe you combine a couple of salaries and go out and get a bigger contract that either gets you a pick because it's so big, or it allows you to go out and get a better player that you can also build with moving forward. You just saw something similar with the Utah Jazz trading for Jaren Jackson Jr. this morning. And just, I don't think that the Bulls are ever really going to make that kind of a splash as we talked about, but this is a guy a guy for a Jazz team who is 25, 26 years old. He's been defensive player of the year. You have this young core with Markkanen, with Walker Kessler, who's obviously been out for the year, but Keontae George is taking a big step forward. You get Ace Bailey in the draft. Now you're bringing in guys, and maybe you don't necessarily make the playoffs this year. Maybe you still want to keep that top 8 protected pick that you have outgoing to OKC. But at least it helps you lay the groundwork for being potentially way more competitive next year. And I think those trades the Bulls should be exploring too, whether it's for a guy who can help you now, or maybe he's injured and you want to just let him relax and chill and then go into next season and start to hit the gas pedal. You saw that with the Trae Young trade, where the Wizards basically offloaded McCollum and Corey Kispert and then got Trae Young in and said, you know what,
sit down.
Knee injury, that quad thing that you had feeling there, maybe just take it easy. And I think the Bulls could and should be looking at those avenues too, because again, they're not going to tank, right? They just simply are not going to do that. But so how do you go about bringing in and, influxing the team with more talent? One way to do that is to buy low on distressed young players who have been kind of played out of favor with their team, as they did with Jaden Ivey today. Another option would be to do what the Jazz did and trade a couple of what will probably not be very good draft picks and none of your own draft picks to be able and go out and get a young star player that will complement your core, and you can figure out the rest of this year and then move forward and actually have a really exciting core to build with. I mean, this Jazz team, Keontae George, Ace Bailey, Jaren Jackson Jr., Lauri Markkanen, and Walker Kessler is going to be just demonic. I mean, defensively, they're going to be incredible. The rim protection there, they've got 2 guys averaging 2.5 blocks per game. And then the shooting, the size, the score, I mean, they're going to be really good. And I think that's kind of an approach or a model or a blueprint for the Bulls to potentially follow here with some of this extra space that they've created.
Let's get our guy, Matt Peck, back in here and go. I don't appreciate you stepping on my Mike Conley dreams right there to have a Bulls uniform on.
Long-time Bulls great, Mike Conley.
Long-time Bulls great. But I do want to know, and for both of you guys, what does this signal to you about a bigger move for the Chicago Bulls? And the bigger move, I mean Giannis, obviously. But what does this signal to you about them making a bigger move?
Guy, speaking of bigger moves, we got a Shams bomb just now.
Let's go.
The Chicago Bulls are trading center Nikola Vucevic and a second-round pick to the Boston Celtics for Anfernee Simons and a second-round pick. Source.
Wow.
ESPN. What?
Oh my goodness.
Yes. Oh, it's over. The long match in the back there
is lighting up. Guys,
go.
Vooch era is over.
Done.
Pour one out. The Vooch era in Chicago is over. Oh my goodness. I just said 20 minutes ago, like, they're probably not moving Vooch. Wow.
And to get it for Simons and settling for that second round pick. Because before we heard first round pick, that was the trade that they were trying to get, and also offering, I can't remember for my man Zubac Shakur, that they were trying to, we heard that trade might be offered right there. And that's when the Bulls kind of slid in and said, oh, girl, you know what I mean? Don't listen to him. I know, you want to holler at me. Let me buy you all these drinks right here. They tried to slide in and sneak them right there. And they were like, no, absolutely not. But they kept wearing them down and said, fine, we'll go down to the second pick. I like it, mainly because Nikola Vucevic is gone. That's the end. Way to just say, okay, fine. And maybe it works out for him in Boston. I mean, I'm not saying like Vuce ain't a good player. We're not saying that. At least I'm not saying that. 18 and 12 and 4 is good. And he's consistently that all the time. But it's clearly had run its course. He clearly was the last one left of the Bulls' short stint of being a playoff team. He clearly was the last one. For me, this signals, yes, we are absolutely moving on. We are absolutely starting over, and we are going to stockpile these young guys and these draft picks. And it doesn't matter if the draft picks are first or second. You stop stockpile draft picks. You put them in your cupboard because you never know what you're going to get for a trade.
Yeah, this is a surprising one. I'm just trying to figure out here what like the second round picks are going to be. And my hope is that this is going to be one of the crummy second round picks that they just got in this Dario Šarić salary dump, which are, I'm forgetting off the exact top of my head, but it's like one in 27, I think, from Denver, and the other in 29 from Detroit, Milwaukee, or New York. And then, the Celtics have some good second round picks this year. They have the Pelicans second round pick, which right now would be, I believe, like 31 or 32. So that could be a really valuable second round pick that the Bulls add while saving Boston about $6.5 million and getting them $2 million above the luxury tax. So they're one move away now from being able to skirt that. And you know what? Shout out to Vooch, right? He's going to go have a chance to compete for a championship this year. And that is great for him.
For
I'm excited for him to be in a position to play for a good team, a great team. And I think he fits right in with what they're going to try to do in terms of shooting the ball, quick decisions, playmaking. And yeah, I think, from the Bulls perspective, just to get Anfernee Simons, another guy who is a small guard. We'll see what happens with all these guards now.
It's a lot of guards, man.
to me, this is probably a sign that they're going to be moving on from Kobe and or Io. They just got two more guards in here with the ability now to pick up an additional second round pick as well. So we'll see what those picks actually look like. But shout out to Vooch, pouring out for the Vooch era. Hopefully he can go get a championship this year.
Pour one out for the Vooch era. Pour one out for him, dog. He's in the record books, like all that stuff. Go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
I was just like Goat said, very happy for him that he's going to go to a contender for the back half of this season in Boston, and we'll see if they re-sign him. But even with Tatum on the shelf, we've seen Boston after a tough start to the season as they were adapting to life without Tatum really come alive. Jaylen Brown looks like like a fringe MVP candidate this season, and now Vooch can go and play. There was that quote that was going around. I think it was in one of Callie's latest write-ups about man, this year after year playing tournament thing is rough at this stage of my career. And credit to him for being open and honest about feeling that way. Shout out to Justin in the chat who said emergency pod within an emergency pod. That's right, a double emergency.
That's right, baby.
We're probably going to, wrap up with a few more minutes of chatter and then, start getting ready for pregame. And then, boom, we got a Shams bomb on a Shams bomb.
Yes.
How about that, Bulls Nation? Shout out. I think we got close to 1,000 of y'all in the chat right now. Thanks for being here on a weekday afternoon. Hit the like button if you haven't done it yet. Throw us a super chat if you want to get a take.
Don't you guys just love
make sure we read.
My goodness.
I mean,
I love it, Goat. I love it.
Goat's living his best life right now. It's
look at him.
Great season equals Goat season.
Look at that young man.
Pep Rock's asking triple emergency incoming again. Somebody else in the chat just said with the arrival of Anfernee Simons, we got too many guards now. Well,
a lot of guards.
Jalen Smith, congratulations, you are our starting center. Although he is, by the way, questionable to play tonight as they continue to manage his calf injury.
He will in Locky time.
Vooch gonna be a DNP after this breaking news. So we'll see what Billy does with his lineup tonight. But yeah, again, this is now another move that signals that there's likely another move because you cannot be keeping
Io, Trey, Kobe, Ivy, Simons. Billy loves guards, but that's too many.
And Yuki makes 7, Dave.
And Yuki makes 7.
I don't know why Goat be doing this. You know what I mean?
He's not on the official roster. If they convert him, then fine. I'll add him to the mix.
Out the greatness, dude. Can I say Anfernee Simons again is another guard I've always liked. I like them so much in Portland, a lot. I don't know. Again, don't know what this signals. Don't know if this means either who's going to stay or if they're just stockpiling for Giannis. And now I'm gonna bring back to that question I asked you before he even asked this, because I think this gives more credibility to that, making this kind of trade. But Anfernee Simons was on the verge of being that kind of star, in Portland, for real, especially in that fourth quarter when it was fourth quarter time. That dude was absolutely cooking when he was in that Portland jersey. And we saw him cook the Chicago Bulls, and the Bulls love trading for guys they watch cook them. And he cooked the Chicago Bulls. I mean, he hit 7 or 8 threes, I believe. I can't remember if it was 7 or if it was 8, but he went absolutely bananas on the Bulls in the game before the one that the Bulls played at the UC on Derrick Rose night. Shout out to all y'all who was hanging out with us in the suite. Shout out to the diehards. But Anfernee Simons is honestly a really excellent player, really good three-point shooter, a guy who can get you 25 points and on a good night can get you 40. Like, he is really skilled, can find and create his own shot. The Bulls are devoid of having shot creators. Like, they need more and more shot creators. So the more young shot creators you can get on your roster, the happier I am. But again, I have to temper kind of that, because it goes back to that question I just asked you guys. Like, what does this look like now? Like, does this signal to you like, oh man, these guys, we're going to keep these guys because this is a lot of guards? Or does it signal, oh man, something bigger may be coming and the Bulls are lining up to get something really huge?
I don't know about something bigger necessarily, but I don't know that I see Simons as a long-term fit. He's a little bit older, and I think Arturas really values positional size. And Simons is 6'1", 6'2", obviously a very small guard. And those are the kind of players who have fallen out of favor in the league. And that's why, I mean, Vooch has been, I think, really solid for the Bulls. But we've talked about his trade market being limited. I think the same has been true for Simons. And that's probably why this deal ends up materializing. Ideally, the Bulls, who are helping the Celtics save some money, are getting the better end of whatever second-round picks are being exchanged here, with the Bulls sending one out and the Celtics sending one back in. I would not be surprised if he is either flipped in another deal or expires and, just creates some more cap flexibility going into next season. Right now, he's the highest paid player on the team, and I don't really think that they view him in that capacity. So we shall see, but I don't necessarily think this opens up the door for a huge move right now. But at the same point, now you've got Jalen Smith basically is the only center on the roster, with Zach Collins being out for extended time. I do think that a big man is certainly something that they're going to have to figure out how to do. But again, another move that is very much geared more towards the future, more towards more away, I should say, from a competitive play-in push this year. So now you're potentially talking about a team that's going to struggle to, if they do make the play-in, get out of it. Another potentially decent lottery pick, plus a bunch of new guards that you can evaluate over the next 30 some odd games here before the end of the season and figure out what you want to do. But I absolutely think that there are going to be more moves to come, because I just don't think you can go the rest of the year with 7 guards who all need minutes here. And yes, I'm including Yuki Kawamura in that.
Oh man, dude. No, this is exciting. Because again, it's not depressing trades. Like, these trades make sense, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, looking at it from the outside in, and it also signals to me that the Bulls are picking a direction and choosing an actual lane that they want to go down, which is what all three of us have kind of said they need to do. Some of us much more boisterous than others. Not looking at you, Matt. Not looking at you. But yeah, man, like, I think this signals that, though. Like, they want to get younger. They want to maybe fall down a little bit more, but not say they want to fall down a little bit more, but still want to compete a little bit. But I feel personally there's something else big coming. Honestly, that's how I feel about this. When you pick up all of these guards and you have all of these pieces that you're like, yeah, this is cool here, but what can I do with this? So even if it's not a Giannis trade, I still feel like a bigger trade is coming, because you don't just really do all of this and run all these guards out there, man. At least that's how I kind of see it and look at it. I think something bigger is coming, though, Matt.
As we continue on to do a little bit of overtime here, because we just got a trade on top of a trade on this emergency podcast. Just a reminder to everybody streaming on our various streaming partners, Roku, Samsung TV, Xfinity, Comcast. If you want the bonus coverage of this episode or any of our overtime episodes, just head to allchgo.com. Yeah, I mean, the curiosity of what happens next is a big part of this. Like, I'm trying to split my brain into realizing this is yet another thing that AK is going to have to negotiate this summer, because Simons is at the end of his 4-year, $100 million deal. Given the fact that he's coming off of the heels of a contract like that, you don't anticipate that he's going to be willing to come cheap, whether it's with the Bulls or anybody else, and it's unrestricted free agency. Whereas now with Jaden Ivey, they control his restricted free agency, and simultaneously thinking that there's still another move to come, and that there was some noise about Io and the Knicks being interested in him the other day that I saw going around. But the way that he's been playing, and we're going to take a look at his body of work in January in pregame in a couple hours. I do think it's most likely that the Bulls really value Io and won't get an offer for him that they deem to be fair right now. So I think AK's next thing on his to-do list is figuring out where he can find the most value for Coby White on this market. And there's still the domino effect thing with, is Giannis going to get moved and where to in the next not quite 48 hours? And how many teams are waiting to figure out whether or not they're going to land the Giannis sweepstakes before making, sub-plot and sub-plan moves? Mm-hmm. And which of those teams have Coby White on their list of alternative options? Obviously, the Minnesota talk has been there for months now. I think Houston has been another team brought up regularly that could be interested in Coby. Orlando, a team that after a rocky start has started to figure things out, but certainly could use some more scoring punch and another floor spacer in their rotation. It's just like, what are you going to settle for? A handful of second round picks for Coby if you're AK? Because like Vooch a year ago, or fill in the blank, asking too much for a player and then waiting until their value has dropped, and he's just a player on an expiring contract that is due a big payday and wants a big payday this summer. So I don't know where AK is going to squeeze the most value out of Coby at this point.
That's what the next 48 hours are for. I was just doing some cap math while you guys were talking, and the Bulls are now about $4.5 million away from the luxury tax. They have 15 roster spots filled. We'll see what they do with it. I mean, I think, as we've been saying, it's unlikely that the Bulls go into the second part of the season with this many guards and this few front court players. But if they do, so be it, and they'll have to figure it out on the fly. And I think that would be good for them in terms of their record and potentially their draft lottery standings. For Vooch, like we said, go on and go get a ring. Hopefully Tatum comes back now and they can actually really compete at the highest level, or they bring him back longer term as kind of their Al Horford of the future. Who obviously they've been missing this year and who has not looked the same, but maybe that kind of a contract where it's like $5 or $10 million for a couple of years. So that could be good for him. But I don't think that Arturis, and this is not source or anything, but just like looking at the two trades that we've just seen here in the past hour or so, I don't think that you can be married to the guys that were on your roster 3 days ago when you're also moving Vucevic and, making this kind of a trade. So, I think there will be more moves to come. I don't know who they will be, but to me, this is the actual, like we've been talking about, is flexibility the plan, or is it the launching point for the plan? Right now, they maintain flexibility with the trades that they've done today with Conley, Ivey, and Simons all expiring contracts. They haven't taken on any longer term money. They've gotten plus at least 2 second round picks in these couple of deals here. We'll see what the quality of them is, but I'm expecting that the second that they're getting from the Celtics is going to be decent. If not one of the, hopefully the Pelicans pick this year, which will be top 30 couple in the draft. I think we're seeing the overhauling of the roster that we've been pleading for years. So, we'll see what it ends up looking like. This is not going to be a finished product. Basically, they've been saying for 2 years that the product was changing but not finished. Now we're actually starting to see some movement. And so it's very hard to predict what it will look like. What I can say is that I know Giddey and Modest are going to be the core pieces. I know they're looking for positional size and athleticism up and down the lineup. I think they like playing with the 2 bigs, so they're going to have to find a new longer-term starting center. And they've got a lot of draft picks in terms of their own draft picks that they can go out and trade. They've got a lot of expiring contracts. They could potentially make a move for somebody in the offseason in the restricted free agent market. There's a lot of possibilities here, and that has simply not been the case over the last 4 years covering this team. So I think everybody should enjoy what the possibilities are. Use your imagination. It's going to be fun to think about all the options, but this is far from over in terms of what their roster could look like heading into next season. And we'll see even how much different it looks at this time on Thursday.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard was the level-headed take from Will the Go Gottlieb. Allow me to give you the other side of this. They're going to get Giannis, bro. That's how I'm looking at this. That's how I'm looking at this. No, I'm saying they're going to make. You don't do all of this to not make a bigger move. You don't. AK, what is he shown you to say that he would do all of this stuff and then just keep it? Like he's not gonna keep Anfernee Simons right here, but he looks good in a trade, don't he? You know, he's not gonna get Mike Conley, keep him here, but guess who looks good in the trade? Is Mike Conley. He already told, we've seen from what he has done in the past, he does not value these second round picks. My God, so why is he stockpiling something he doesn't value? Because he's trying to trade them and give them away. And it looks better when you combine it with some first round picks. You give a team a plethora of second round picks, then it looks better. I'm just saying, man, I think they're making a move to get Giannis. That's just what it looks like to me. Like, then he gave up Vooch, like, and gave him up for something that he didn't want. They wanted a first rounder. That's why he didn't go to Golden State. It's because they wanted that. And now all of a sudden he has to come to Jesus moment, and it's like, okay, well, guess what? You can go for that second round pick and get out of here. We're fine with this now. It just doesn't sit well with what I've seen him do. It just doesn't. It signals to me that I'm stockpiling and putting all this stuff together because I'm ready to push all those chips in and try to go get that dude. That's what it signals to me, man. That's how I kind of am looking at it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll be fine. But that's what it kind of signals to me when I see this stuff, though. This what it looks like is I'm going to get something much bigger than this. I'm not going to just sit on Jalen Smith and Lockie as my centers. Like, that doesn't make any sense that they would roll with that. So it just feels like it signals to me that they are going for something bigger.
I would actually probably lean the opposite direction and say they are finally doing the slow, methodical approach that Arturas talked about doing when he first took over the team, and then got a little trigger happy and traded 2 picks for Vooch. I think that they are collecting younger players with upside. They're operating on this timeline of Giddey and Modest, and now potentially Ivy. I think they're going the other direction, the slower approach, the more rebuilding style approach. Now, of course, most teams that are rebuilding are way more, in love with assets and with draft picks. That has not been the case so far for what we've seen, at least in terms of first round picks. But maybe they're able to flip a couple of those, or maybe they're able to flip Kobe into a first round pick. Plus Kobe plus a couple of seconds gets you a better first round pick, something like that. I don't know exactly what it will be. But to me, this is the sort of start of the overhaul in terms of getting and building a younger roster and putting yourself in a position where I thought Ricky O'Donnell spoke about this really well in an article and on, I can't remember if it was WGN or whatever radio station he was on, 670 maybe. Or I guess they just changed now to like the FM station. In any event, I thought he spoke about this really well, which was that the Bulls have been rebuilding for 9 years and have not been in a position to go out and get a star like Giannis, right? Mm-hmm. And so now you're in a position where you're cutting off the older players on your roster. You're transitioning more slowly and methodically towards the younger players. And ideally here, we'll see what happens. They're not going to tank, but maybe they lean a little bit more into the draft lottery standings as opposed to the play-in standings. With the Hornets coming as hot as they are, it could be a matter of time. So now you're in a position where you've got maybe a Blazers first round pick coming this year in the teens, maybe your own pick this year, which could be, in the 8 to 10 range. You've got Giddey, you've got Modest, you've got Ivy. Now you've got a foundation. And can you start to add to that through restricted free agency? And now you're in a position where you're light, you're nimble, you don't have any big money contracts on your books. And now in a year or two, you've got this core that's ready to take a step forward. And that's when you can go out and get a player like Giannis. And so I think they're right to take this more patiently. But as we've talked about, the patience part is great, but you have to be actually doing stuff. And I think this is earning Arturas some patience, right? Is now I'm starting to flip over the roster. Now I've got some younger players. To me, that's where he's starting to earn that a little bit.
No. Respectfully disagree. AK still hasn't earned crap in this Bulls fan's eyes.
Well, maybe not earned, but they're in a position now where you're going to have to start to see some of this stuff out. Before it was just like, what are they going to just see out the contracts expiring? Like you're getting some assets, you're flipping some young, like, again, I don't think it's not the rebuilding approach that I would probably have gone with from the start. There's been missteps along the way, but I think these last couple of moves here are a sign that they're moving in the right direction. And he's still got to continue to build on that and prove it. But this is what, when Arturas sat up at the podium after last season and said, I'm asking for patience, this is what that patience should have been like. Now we're finally getting to the part where, okay, we can start to see that there are some moves being made and you're moving towards a specific thing. A year and a half ago, that was not the case. And so I think that's a big difference.
Sure, fair. By the way, shout out to all 1,200 plus of y'all watching live as we extend well past an hour here on this emergency pod because we have had 2 breaking Bulls trades in the last 90 minutes or so. Shout out to Diego Manischewitz in the chat who said, arriving late, young players with experience, anyone? Yeah, Bulls got a gaggle of them. Giggities, what up in the chat, saying maybe they are finally tanking, which is what Peck and many of us have wanted for years now. So that to say and jump off of, I kind of more so agree with Goat. Dave, I love where your head's at. And if Giannis is a Bull 48 hours from now, I will be more shocked than anybody, but I'm not banking on it. I think this is the closest we will ever get. And there's probably going to be another move, whether it's Kobe or Io, in the next 48 hours. This is the closest we're going to get to AK admitting the roster he built stunk and tearing it down. But he's tearing it down without accumulating valuable draft capital while doing so. He's bringing in young players with experience, his favorite thing in the world, and many of whom are on expiring contracts that he's going to just have to go and negotiate with this summer. Mm-hmm. So forgive me for not doing cartwheels right now. It's awesome that we have 2 trades to talk about. Trade deadline week. That's fun. That's exciting. That's different. This is tearing down without accumulating assets for your future. I think he basically just did Vooch a solid and traded him to a contender while taking a flyer on yet another young guard that they're going to take a look at for a third of a season and then decide if and how much they want to pay him this summer to stick around. Like this is the closest we will get. Those of us who thought that there was value in this team prioritizing the draft and their position in it last season and this season. This is the closest we're getting, because you take Vooch out of this team, as much as he's been maligned by a large portion of the fan base, as much as he's been a scapegoat in a lot of ways on the defensive end, you take Vooch off this 24-win team right now, how many wins do they have? 12? 15? Like you said earlier, Goat, these are not win-now moves. They're not tanking moves, because God forbid, AK will never utter that word out of his mouth, but these are tear down moves where you're getting flyers on players that you're going to have to pay if you decide you want to keep them. Mm-hmm. I wish I could be more excited about it.
I just don't think these guys that he's trading were ever going to get him. I mean, was Huerter ever going to net you a first round pick? Was Vooch ever going to get you a first round pick? No. So like they have to start stripping it down. And I get it. Like they should have been
criticism though, Goat. He waited too long. He held on to all of his assets too long to the point where he sold them for next to nothing.
Agreed.
So you're starting a rebuild with nothing to build with except a couple of pieces like that none of whom have super high ceilings.
I just don't think that they were ever going to be able to get. I mean, Caruso is the exception. I know they could have gotten multiple picks for him. And I'm not like absolving them of previous mistakes, but they got to start somewhere. This is what they have to work with in terms of moving forward. It's not going to erase the sins of the past. Nothing can at this point, but hopefully they're learning from those mistakes and actually building organically, which is what it seems like they're doing. I don't think, obviously they should have way more draft picks. They should have been prioritizing that. They shouldn't be afraid to tank, like all that stuff. That doesn't change my stance on any of that, but for where they are right now and what they have, I think they're helping themselves for the first time. And that's a positive. I mean, I'm not saying it's fixing everything or that they're going to become this team that like is the next Thunder with a zillion draft pick. Like that's obviously not the case, but they're trying to start helping themselves, and they should have done it a while ago, but there's nothing they can do about that now other than move forward the right way. And even when they started moving forward, it wasn't the right way. So at least now they're starting to do semi the right way. And we'll see what happens with Kobe. Maybe they get a pick or two for him, and that changes our perspective on their asset trope. But like, this is how they need to, I think, approach it based on what they have. And they're still super flexible going into next year, where I think they're going to try their hand at a couple of restricted free agents. So again, I'm 1,000% in agreement with you that like basically the wasted the last 4 years, right? Of not doing this, of prioritizing the wrong things, of making the play and push, of all this stuff. None of that, nothing can change any of that. But from today on, I think they're off to a much better start than I would have anticipated. And even you, I mean, we both sat here and said, like, they're not trading Vooch. Like, they're not going to be, they did it. And hopefully we'll see what these second round picks are. But like, I think that they're trying to start helping themselves. And maybe I'm naive to give them the benefit of the doubt here, but that's kind of my perspective on this right now. And that's also subject to change.
I think you have to call it as you see it, and that's all it is. Like I don't have any to get you on the Giannis train, depending on what the second round picks look like.
Yeah, sure, okay, but are they going to be second round picks to AK packages to land Giannis?
Correct. Just depending on what they look like. Yes.
We'll see. Look, I am not wholly negative on these moves happening. They're overdue moves. That's what's frustrating to me. They're overdue moves.
Frustration is valid.
You know, I still don't think that this is going to lead to the Bulls being so bad that they catch up to a handful of teams in those tankathon standings over the last 32 games of the season. And this team still desperately needs a high lottery draft pick or a franchise player from somewhere else. Because of all of these moves that were made today, old players out, new players in, got some negotiating to do at the free agent table this summer. Your team still doesn't have a franchise player and still has just a bunch of mid talent on it. It's young, but it's mid talent. So
not going to get me to disagree with that.
Hooray. Hooray for that. Let's see what happens next. We should probably wrap it up here because we got to turn and burn and get ready to do a pregame show in just a few hours. Bulls in action in, of all places, Milwaukee. Giannis-less Bucks tonight.
Feed my conspiracy theories.
And yes, Chicago Bulls all day pointing out in the chat what I just saw as well. Shams was just on ESPN doing a hit saying the Bulls are not done, as I think we all anticipated with this bevy of guards that they have, including their current expiring guards, Ayo and Kobe. Both of whom we should expect to see in the lineup tonight, or I don't know. Will either of them be late scratches with some injury? Well, with Kobe, the injury management excuse is already there. So we'll see. We'll see who suits up for the Bulls just north 94 later tonight. We'll have live CHGO Bulls pregame coming up in studio at 6:30 Central Time tonight before the 7 o'clock tip, and be there for live postgame as well. We'll see if AK makes another trade between now and then. Let's hope not, so we can get our bearings for pregame. Thanks, y'all, for tuning in to this emergency pod. Shout out to our friends at Xfinity for sponsoring all of our CHGO emergency pods this season. And hit the like button on your way out if you haven't done it yet. We will see y'all soon for pregame. For Go and Big Dave, shout out to Chloe and Sarah and our production crew getting things rolling for an emergency pod behind the scenes. Appreciate them as always. We will see y'all for pregame. See Red be good. AK making moves.
Love y'all. Giannis.
We all silly like the mayor.